this tree doesn't care. We tend to be emotional. Well, you cut a hole in my tree. I don't like the looks of my tree. The tree is not emotional as we are. As long as it can grow around and produce leaves, it's happy. Here was a tree that we went to in Georgia Power down in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was in a tour group. And I got out and we were discussing this, and I walked down and actually went and talked to the lady that owns this. And they were going, no, don't do that. Don't get her out. She's going to be mad. And this had been trimmed for quite a while. This is a lateral trim tree. It's an oak tree. It wants to be 120 feet tall. Can it be 120 feet tall with a power line? No. But by pruning it, they're training this tree to grow around the line. Well, I walked in and knocked on this door, and I got the lady out. And I said, ma'am, I explained who I was. And when I was down here, I said, are you happy with this tree? Because I'll just be honest with you, it looks like an airplane crashed in. And I said, I'm just being honest. I said, that, if you stand down the street and look at this, there's this big hole in your tree. You can't be happy about it. I just want to know. And she goes, no, I'm tickled to death with this tree. And I said, why? She goes, look at all the shade that I get on my porch in my house, and it saves me $200 a year in energy bills. Whoa, I think somebody that's got a little knowledge about energy savings. And she said, when this tree, it's got pretty full canopy. I said, in the summer and in the fall, it's got pretty fall color. Of course, it's an oak tree. Oaks are not noted for their fall color, but she said it's pretty. And she said, it clears the line. I've got a healthy tree. I know I've got a healthy tree, and I enjoy the shade. And I said, well, wouldn't you have rather cut the tree down and let the utility plant a small, growing, flowering dogwood or something? And she goes, no, I wouldn't have had this shade. And I said, well, okay, what if they topped the tree? Then you would have at least an even tree. And she goes, no, I came from an area they used to top, and the whole center of it would die out. And I'd eventually end up taking the tree down anyway. She goes, so you gave me 3 options, and I'm telling you the best option is the one they got. And I said, oh, okay. It just takes a little bit getting used to. But is this tree healthy? Yes. All of these are terminal buds. All of these buds are producing growth. All of the leaf buds are producing full growth. But we've got this problem to deal with. We can't get around that. As long as that tree exists there, we've got that problem. Okay? Here's a tree that is being trained, the maple. Again, clear out around the power line, trim everything to a healthy bud, and allow that tree to grow around that tree. Is that the best option for this tree? The owner might want to take this tree down and replace it with a small flowering tree. If you want a tree to grow to its full potential, the only way to do this is take it down. But if you want the tree there to produce as much foliage as possible, then lateral pruning is the only way to do it. This is a tree in Fountain City. This is amazing to me because everybody on this street thought this tree was so beautiful. In the fall, it produced this gorgeous orange-red colors. In the summer, it had all full canopy to it. This is on KUB system in Fountain City. And I stopped and talked to several people, and they were saying, well, I don't like lateral pruning. That's why, because it creates a hole. And I said, okay. And I saw that tree. And I said, are you all happy with that tree? Oh, absolutely. I hope KUB never cuts this tree down because this tree is so beautiful. And I said, well, guess what? That's lateral pruning. See, there's no stubs in there. There's no decay in that tree. Years ago, it was trimmed to a lateral. Now, your utility may not be happy with all that overhang because Georgia Power won't allow that simply because they have ice storms. Okay? That's an issue between utilities. I'm happy with it because it got the clearance around the power line and it's closing canopy up, and that tree right there is as healthy as any tree out there, despite the fact that it has been pruned. But it wasn't topped, it was pruned, knowing the growth habits of the tree. All right, the least invasive method of pruning is still lateral pruning, and it's side trimming where the tree is far enough from a power line so that all you need to do is take out some limbs in this direction and train the tree to grow around the line. That's side trimming, terminal buds, everything's healthy, no stubs, no decay, and the tree is growing around the power line. Its response to that is simply you keep cutting to a lateral. If you do not have a lateral, you have to go back to the next junction point. Sometimes that means going back to the main part of the tree and cutting it off at the trunk, which is an objection that you will hear because somebody will accuse the utility of getting too much clearance. The point of lateral trimming is the tree dictates where we make the cut. We cannot. I cannot say, I want X number of feet from that power line and that's where I'm going to make my cut. Because that cut may not be where a lateral is, okay? A lateral bud. So, if I've got a good enough lateral, a solid enough lateral to support this limb, then I can cut right there. If that lateral is too small, I'm going to have to go back to the next junction point. As soon as I go back to the next junction point, I get accused of taking too much clearance. But that's better on the tree. This tree is a natural picture of one that was on KUB, major line here. I don't know why they asked me in the panel why there wasn't a lot of foliage here. May not have been originally, because this is a hackberry. I think it's a hackberry, at least it's hard to see because it's a dark picture. But once again, they took out the limbs that were growing toward the power line, no stubs, no decay, training the tree to grow as full as potentially possible around the power line. And one of the classic cases that you'll see along streets is this kind of an L shape or U shape you might want to. Again, everything cut to a lateral here, no stubs, training that tree to grow around it. Well, that puts all this foliage intact so that it can manufacture food for itself. But people say, when you do that, you have slightly one-sided my tree and now it's going to fall over on my house. Is that the case? No. Because you didn't take that much weight off of it. You took foliage, but not that much weight. And trees are not so sensitive that a little bit of weight taken off here is going to pitch the whole tree over. It just doesn't happen that way. Okay, myths, the reality and perception of topping. You can read this as well as I can. Perception is it's good for limiting the tree height. The reality is it's too tall for the location. The perception is it's good for reducing the risk of storm damage. The reality is those water sprouts are very weak-wooded, and so they're weakly attached, and so the regrowth is much weaker, it's much more prone to break out. It's good for producing denser shade. Amen to that. It will produce dense shade if it survives initially, but over a long period of time, you'll reduce overall shading because you're taking all the limbs out instead of just a few. And is topping necessary for power lines? And the answer to that is no. There are utilities in this country that do not do topping. KUB is one of the ones that lateral prunes. There are 1 out of every 10 utilities in this state are tree line utilities. But the real reason is proper species selection, better placement, or proper pruning is much better than topping. Problems associated with topping, let's say if we covered all of these, root-crown ratio is unbalanced. They become starved for food, sun scald, large stubs decay, new growth is weak. It creates hazardous trees, and by that I mean they're breaking out. After it's been topped 4 or 5 times, if it survived, it's got big chunks of wood that are now breaking out. It disfigures the tree. You might argue about that when lateral pruning when it's directly under the power line. But still, we argue that it disfigures the trees because it takes a tree that wants to grow into a central leader and spreads it out over a long period of growth. And it has a temporary response of growth, but the long-term response is decay and ultimate death with disease. The Tree Line USA is a national program. KUB is a tree line utility. Again, there's only 12 tree line utilities in the state of Tennessee. That means there's 1 out of every 10 that's recognized as a tree line utility. It's a program sponsored by the Arbor Day Foundation and the National Association of State Foresters, which is why we're involved, because of our National Association of State Foresters. The standards are quality tree care, defined really as the ANSI A300 National Standards for Pruning, which is lateral pruning. They have to show annual worker training to their crews, contractors,